When asked this question, most of us would answer easily, laws are intended to maintain order and promote justice, and as members of society, we uphold them. But what happens when those laws promote and spread discrimination and bigotry? In this episode of Origin of Everything, we'll be analyzing the discriminatory history of US law, tracing its origins in colonialism to the present-day penal system. In order to deconstruct this troubling history, we'll be looking at 4 distinct time periods of US law. First, we'll look at the foundation of legal discrimination based on race during colonialism. Next, we'll examine the system of chattel slavery to see how the legacies of colonialism translated into ongoing legal subjugation for Black subjects in the US. Third, we'll explore how Jim Crow laws extended legal discrimination into the 20th century. And finally, we'll discuss how the concepts of being tough on crime in the latter half of the 20th and early 21st century allowed the continuation and expansion of discriminatory laws under the umbrella of mass incarceration. By tracing this timeline, we'll be looking at the ways discriminatory legal practices have always disproportionately impacted Black and Brown communities, and how these legacies and laws continue to have adverse effects on vulnerable communities to this day. But before we get into the heart of how laws and sentencing structures can be discriminatory, we should clarify a few key terms, namely crime and punishment. And no, I'm not talking about the Dostoevsky novel of the same name. I'm talking about crime or breaking of laws and punishment, as in the penalty you pay as a result of being found guilty of committing a crime. Although we often think of these things as directly correlated, think of the old adage, if you do the crime, you've got to do the time, there's actually not a direct relationship between how much crime is committed and what types of punishment are meted out. In his book, Thinking About Crime, Sense and Sensibility in American Penal Culture, Professor Michael Tonry notes that nations with remarkably similar crime rates often have vastly different sentencing and punishment standards. He determines that crime rates and punishment rates often don't align, and that governments decide how much punishment they want. He writes, "This can be seen by comparing crime and punishment trends in Finland, Germany, and the United States between 1960 and 1990. The trends are close to identical. Violent crime rates in all 3 countries grew by a factor of 3 to 4, and homicide rates more than doubled. Yet the US imprisonment rate quadrupled in that period, the Finnish rate fell by 60%, and the German rate was broadly stable." So in this example, we see 3 countries with almost identical crime trends, with 3 starkly different ideas of punishment. Therefore, when we analyze how laws are broken and punishment is assigned, we have to look at why societies change their stances on crime and punishment. Tonry attributes this to a few factors, 2 important ones being moral panics and the sensibilities of a society. Moral panics, as he describes them, occur when a society sees a moral or social issue and overreacts as a result, which usually leads to increased rates of punishment or more severe punishment for